All right, good afternoon, viewers. We have with us today Dr.Sanjay Aparanti, who has been for last 10 years relentlessly trying to put forth both Ambedkarian agenda and has also very consistently and in most dedicated manner has taken this legacy forward. Today we have him with us, and thank you very much, Dr. Aparanti, for accepting.
Thank you very much for having me in this very important Facebook Live, Professor Kamble.
So, we have a few. I first of all welcome you for this dialogue. This dialogue, I think, is an important one because we are discussing both, in fact, ideological, philosophical, and at the same time, concrete, practical issues of political transformation. So there are, we can go ahead with basic questions, which I think I would want you to very elaborately respond to them. The first very broad question, so as to set the background for our discussion today, or our dialogue today, I would want to ask, and intentionally, a very broad question. Now, this question is, what is the ideological, philosophical orientation of Ambedkarian politics? This might appear a little naive today, but it is necessary to set that ideological, philosophical legacy once again very firmly. Yes, Dr. Aparanti.
Well, Professor Kamble, the basic intention with the political agenda of Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar was to have a voice to the marginalized section of society. Now, this voice precisely he wanted to have in the political sphere because the most important aspect of the existence is the political sphere part of it. Because what he precisely advised his people, or rather marginalized people, they could be scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, minorities, and even OBCs, is to have their political representation. The moment one has a political representation, one can push the agenda ahead, bring it on a political platform, and get the solutions for the various issues and problems, for which he really worked very hard, and that his efforts go back from 1919, where he put forth the issue of Dalits, marginalized, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, before the Southborough Commission. So, before that, before putting this issue, it was just the discussion between Hindus and Muslims as far as the British government goes. So the third force, third faction was that of Dalits, but it was never given due importance. It was for the first time that Ambedkar brought it in front of the British government, the British political forces, that there is one more aspect which remains in Indian politics, and that is giving representation to Dalits or downtrodden, or in those days the people who are not given any kind of representation in finances and representation in any kind of a political position. So all that our people are deprived of was the basic intention of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar in informing British government, and hence we need political representation. Now that was done in 1919. Now thereafter, in 1927, in front of Simon Commission, he brought forth the same kind of an agenda as to having political representation for Dalits, Adivasis, and downtrodden in general. Thereafter, we saw three roundtable conferences. Conference of 1930, Conference of 1931, Conference of 1932. So he was vehemently pushing forward the same very agenda, but on a bigger platform now. And there he got recognition by 1932, which we call it as the communal award given by the then Prime Minister Ramsay MacDonald. So basic intention of Dr. Ambedkar behind working on this issue was in order to resolve the various kind of atrocities, the various kind of denial of the rights, and even the political representation. With this intention, he brought forth all these conferences and fora, the same issue of gaining a political representation, which he was successful. Of course, you know, Professor Kamble, that thereafter in 1932, what happened was a very bad thing for Dalits to have experienced for throughout their life till today. And that was the happening of Pune Pact. What happened in Pune Pact is this particular right of Dr. Ambedkar of having separate electorate was denied because of adamant nature, adamant behavior, and adamant stand of none other but by Gandhi. And there in Gandhi wanted Dalits to be in the same fold as caste Hindus. Now that we have been experiencing till today that caste Hindus have not been giving due representation to Dalits, as a result Dalits remain at the mercy of caste Hindus, caste supremacists rather. And as it goes, caste supremacists is having a same ideology of maintaining their supremacy and not giving the due importance, equal importance to marginalized section of society, which we are facing even now and today.
Right, yes. I mean, you have raised an important question of political representation as an important step towards not only voice in the political arena, but also as a step towards bringing about concrete changes. And indeed, I mean, that was the case. There are two aspects to my mind to Dr. Ambedkar's politics. One is that he is rooted in democratization of Indian society. His primary concern was not merely Dalits, but he viewed this particular, that is, transformation or change in lives of Dalits, he viewed this as rooted in possibility of making or taking Indian society on the democratic path. Only when Indian society achieves democratic path, that it becomes possible to raise questions of the margins as an autonomous being. So his primary concern, therefore, I would also want to add to this, is that his concern is broader for the broad society, transformation of society. As a result, now you find that Dr. Ambedkar and his work is invoked at various fora today, and people, those who otherwise would not have paid attention to what he wrote earlier, now have started taking deep interest in him. I think the reason is that he represents a quest for democratization of Indian society. Well, having said this, let me come back to the question that we were raising. I think there are two ways through which you can understand Ambedkarian politics. Here, specifically, his concern with the question of caste and the question of lack of voice because of caste. Okay, so now I think Dr. Ambedkar succeeded in making the then untouchables as an autonomous, independent political category during the colonial times. However, in the post-Ambedkarian phase, we see that they have been subject to politics of accommodation, politics of inclusion, where they are being included in this political agenda set by the dominant political elites in this country. That is what is the contemporary political scene. So in that background, it would be interesting for us to dwell on this fact that in the contemporary political scenario, which, as you would agree, is moving towards a rightist fascist direction, how do we visualize the possibilities of taking forward political agenda of democratization of Indian society set by Dr. Ambedkar?
Well, it is a very critical kind of a situation we are put in today. The situation is the nationalist, fascist and authoritarian agenda which the political party like BJP is up with, and it is trying to implement that agenda forcefully. Of course, not directly, although it is forcefully, but not directly, but with deception. It is indirectly trying to implement that agenda. That is a scenario today which we see. And well, it is, one can say that world over, the nationalistic pattern has very much in the, you can say, rising. Many authoritarian regimes have come into existence. You can say, well, Recep Tayyip Erdogan of Turkey and Putin of Russia and so on. Now, in a similar fashion, even the BJP is doing and putting forth its agenda forcefully. Why do I say deceptively? Because it has to give regard to the constitutional framework, which does not allow this kind of forces to come to forth. Now, hence, it has to act with a deception, which it has been, I must say, that doing successfully. Now, the only setback it had is in the election, the last concluded election of 2024 of Lok Sabha, where that agenda did not work, and then it has gone absolutely on back foot, and then it has, the only alternative left was to appropriate Dr. Ambedkar and to appropriate the constitutional tenets as well. Now, unfortunately, or rather fortunately, I must say for Ambedkarites, that they have realized that without taking Ambedkar into an account, without taking constitutional tenets into an account, they just cannot go ahead. Now, there is one more issue which you raised in your initial part of your question, that the democratization, whether it would be able to solve the issues of Dalits, of giving them representation, of taking care of the atrocities committed on them by caste supremacists, and giving no importance to them or rather ignoring their issues and ignoring their very existence, which could there be a solution of democratization? Now, I would say that I would not like to cast aspersions on the intentions, but the democratization in general should be able to take care of the issues of inclusion, issues of giving respect to the various sections of society, and at the same time giving their resolving their issues and satisfying their political as well as social aspirations of equality, social aspirations of giving importance, social aspiration of their progress with the progress of the nation. Now, the very intention of Dr. Ambedkar, which we always say that in the core of his personality, he was a true Democrat. Now, this democratization of the country, democratization of the political system would definitely take care of the various aspects and the issues of Dalits and downtrodden was the intention, was rather the vision of Dr. Ambedkar. Now what we see that, that democratization which went on happening, but it is not in a proper true spirit. It is with distortions. Now one can say well that if the country is democratized, the representation to marginalized section or giving importance to marginalized section, making them prosperous, all this would be a trickle-down effect, and they would be taken care of, automatically. But what we see today, it did not happen. Now that I can say that if you really see the kind of representation given by the political parties as far as selection of candidates is concerned, you don't see that representation percentage being followed by the political parties. Now that kind of a thing is absolutely against democracy. Now from that point of view, one can say that, well, the democratization of nation and the progress and taken the roadmap towards ultimate 100% democratization, there is a question whether it would be able to resolve the issues of Dalits, Adivasis and the marginalized section of society. But does it mean that we shouldn't follow the democratic path? We have no other way but to follow democratic path. We will go by it. Now what is the key then? To achieve our goals in this kind of a democracy, practically speaking, not the ideological democracy, but the democracy which exists today, now the best tool available in our hand in democracy today is having our separate section and not merging it, but bargaining it with the political parties which are existing and getting our share of the power within their fold, because that's the only alternative left because of the Pune Karar, Pune Pact. Now we have to constantly keep that in our mind, that we cannot forget the happening of the thing which has happened in the past of Pune Karar and the ideological part of it which we are forced to enter into is in the joint electorate. Now when it is joint electorate, we are less likely to have the representative which would be Ambedkarite. So they would prefer a Dalit who would not be Ambedkarite, because for them that kind of a Dalit is convenient. That is what we are seeing, and that is the basic reason for Ambedkarites, Dalit not getting representations in today's political system existing in India.
Yeah, this is an important assertion that you're making. You're saying that despite the political representation, the Ambedkar agenda has not been taken forward because that does not suit the interest of the dominant elites. And of course, yes, that leads us to, as you are saying, very critical kind of a phase, where you have also pointed out that everywhere these, rightist forces are on rise, and that, they seem to abrogate, they seem to appropriate the space of all other. This then leads to rather a difficult kind of a question, which I also have for myself. We claim to be a successful democracy, and one of the criteria through which this claim to successful democracy has been conduct of elections, successful conduct of elections, and the formation of governments through or as a result of such kind of elections. But while these things have indeed taken place, inequalities, very deep-seated sorry, very deep-seated inequalities in terms of rights and claims to resources, rights and claims to respect, and rights and claims to recognition are, in fact, these inequalities, specifically very deep-seated inequalities, continue to be the character of Indian society. Now, this then leads us to the warning that Dr. Ambedkar had given while presenting the draft to Constituent Assembly, where, as you, of course, as you are very well acquainted, where he talked about kind of a gulf between political equality and complete lack of equality in social and material arena. If that is the case, can our claims to democracy be can they be, are they substantial in nature? Because I think the successful conduct of elections has not been able to address the deep-seated inequalities. We have inequality report where we basically look at Indian society as deeply unequal in nature, socially, materially, culturally. If in that case, how do we see the possibility of taking forward Ambedkarian agenda?
Well, it's a very important question for me, because this inequality has been the basic nature rather of Indian society. And this inequality is not only has been brought about by the social structure of the society, but it is the functional aspect which exists in Indian society, which caters to the existing inequality. It not only has created inequality by the caste system or varna system, but at the same time it tries to maintain that inequality and shows and says that this inequality which has been created, which is divine, it is not created by man. Every time they proclaim that, because it is the Vedas also say that the inequality is created, is divine in nature. Now, this kind of inequality, Dr. Ambedkar had a task of correcting it politically, correcting it rather socially as well, through the constitutional tenets. He did his best to bring about a correction of the inequality, but he only had said that whatever best things I have incorporated in Constitution, if they are not implemented properly, then that would be absolutely, it would go in vain. It would not see the light of the day. Now, because he had those presumptions, a number of things came about. The number of discourses also came about in order to bring about 100% removal of inequality. Now, the basic part of inequality is lying in the caste system. Because the caste system is not only hierarchical, but it is, you see at the top there is reverence, while at the bottom there is contempt. As you go towards the bottom, contempt increases. As you go higher up, the reverence increases. So Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar had categorically called it as a graded inequality. Now this graded inequality is maintained by itself. Not only it is maintained by itself, but there is one more aspect which is very interesting, and that is this graded inequality and the necessity of having important position to Brahmins is maintained by the various rituals, various festivals, various kind of, the rituals to an extent that getting married, after birth, the birth ceremony, housewarming ceremony, and every kind of a festival is also with the intention of giving position, important position to Brahmins. Now this particular part of it was completely rejected by Ambedkarite Buddhists. But the rest of the society in the entire country, what is the percentage of Ambedkarite Buddhists? Say, for instance, for that matter, it wouldn't come in Maharashtra itself, it is not more than 14-15%. And country-wise, it is hardly any. So, except that section of society, rest of the section, to my mind, has not completely rejected the Brahminical hegemonic practices. And this Brahminical hegemonic practices have been perpetuating this inequality, which has been the basic issue for us. Now, whether this can be corrected by democratization. So, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar also had categorically said that the democratization is just a topsoil. The rest of the part of the earth is non-democratic. Now that is India. So this topsoil we have to increase slowly, gradually topsoil. Now by the law of nature, topsoil gets eroded. It does never increase. Now similar kind of a situation, whether it is happening in Indian society, is a question for me. Now we have to reverse it. I call it as reclaiming equality. We were born equal. But these people have made us Brahminical hegemony, and their rule has made us unequal since the the murder of Bruhadrath by Pushyamitra Sunga. Now this Pushyamitra Sunga's regime, when it came into existence, you see all Buddha things went under the ground. That is how wherever you dig, you get nothing but Buddha. You get that culture. Now we have to reclaim it because we had equality. We did have, absolutely egalitarian society in Buddha's times. Of course, Buddha had also established it. It was not existing. It was in the Brahminical hegemony part of it, it was ruined. Buddha re-established it. Now we have to reclaim what Buddha had re-established. And that reclamation of us is going to be possible only by implementation of tenets of the Indian Constitution created by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. Now this is basically reclaiming egalitarian society. This reclamation is, if you say that, well, it would be able to reclaim ever. I am optimistic about it, that there is no other way. There is no alternative but to reclaim by the means available. And the best means available are that of Constitution. Hence, we can reclaim it by following the tenets of Constitution and having them implemented forcefully, for which we need political representation. And if we cannot get political representation by number, by separate electorate, if we have to enter we are of course entering into a joint electorate system, then in that case the only alternative for us is bargaining. Bargaining without surrendering our existence. For me, that is the only solution left today.
Right, yes. I mean, you have raised a very important question of reclaiming equality. A kind of inequalities that we were pushed in was not the basic character of our being. We were primarily equal, and you have also taken the example of a Buddhist society in India, where Buddhism was rooted in equal. Buddhism was primarily a society of equals. This is a really very interesting kind of a question. A kind of a view that you have put forth. I wanted to raise that question a little later, but since you have already spoken about it, I think even there is also politics of categories, and what I mean by categories is the mental constructs. For example, you might see in public policy, this word has been put forth again and again, Labharti or beneficiaries. I think we were never Labhartis, we were Adhikaris. That is, we had an Adhikar. We had claims and rights. So we were never beneficiaries, we were claimants. And these claims basically have come from the constitutional mandate. Now, that has to be also in a way. So this whole question about political economy, this whole question about political philosophy was an extremely important thing. Should we say India is primarily a Buddhist country or a Buddhist society? Primarily, a certain kind of cultural political formations might have taken or has mapped the space. So primarily, if at all one talks about Indian past, it is primarily past of Buddhist philosophy or Buddhist way of life.
Well, rather be able to align on this issue with reference to what happened in the history. Now, say for instance, ours was basically the society of Indus Valley civilization. Thereafter, Aryans came into this country, and the peace-loving people of Indus Valley civilization, the peaceful society, urban society, having every kind of aspect of living, creating not only normal but ideal. That kind of a society had undergone total distortions because of advent of Aryans into the country. Now the Aryans being the nomads, Aryans being the being the people not respecting to the harmonious equal society, the distortions happened so much that the whole society underwent the kind of transformation, metamorphosis, which made this society absolutely abnormal. Now this abnormal society was the result for Buddha to emerge. He started trying to find out the harmony-giving aspects, philosophical aspects, which can bring about the distorted harmony of society. So basically, society was never distorted. Society was normal. Society was harmonious. For their own benefit, Aryans distorted the society completely. Now the restoration of harmony and getting rid of distortions was the efforts of Buddha, Jain, Ajivaks, Charvak, all those people. Where the sustainable part of it, we see that of Buddha. By that, what you question that whether it was Buddha's land, I would rather agree that even Fine has said Chinese pilgrim. I saw only Buddha. So if you take that into an account, you can say this has been since the immemorial time, the land of harmony, not that of Buddha. And Buddha is synonymous with harmony. Buddha is synonymous with no distortions. Buddha is synonymous with egalitarian society. Now that egalitarianism again was distorted, put into array by the rise of Pushyamitra Sunga, who was a Brahmin. And he killed Brihadrat by conspiracy and came to power, and that is how the Buddha's harmonious living disappeared. And what appeared was again distortions in a different format. And even with that format, they were now very experienced. They wanted to design something which can be everlasting. There came what we call it as Manusmriti. So all those things were made into a proper legal channel in order to make inequality sanctified, inequality divine. And that kind of a thing, when it happened, then the task thereafter came to Mahatma Phule and Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. Now that the task of making the society harmonious again was done by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. First is bringing forth the claim for rights of unequal people, or rather the people who were victimized because of inequality. So he claimed those rights. And that is what I initially mentioned is Southborough Commission, then Simon Commission, and 3 roundtable conferences. We did that. But that was again distorted by Gandhi. And Gandhi again went as if Gandhi was an extension of Pushyamitra Sunga. As if Gandhi was extension of Manusmriti. And it again went back into that kind of a system where at this point of time, we all constantly have been asking for equal status, asking for representation, asking for reclamation of our rights, and that too from whom? Not from the abstract entity, but the entities which are existing, and they are caste supremacists. So it has become such kind of an exercise for all intellectuals of Ambedkarite society that they just do not understand what to do, how to reclaim our rights, whether we should merge with these caste supremacist parties or we should have our own separate force, and then we can bargain. Now when they start creating their equal force, by that time so many years have passed after Dr. Ambedkar, and they have entered into a phase of lumpenization. Now, number of them not only have forgotten their glorious past, but they feel that, being with this caste supremacist is the only alternative left for us to survive, which has led to lumpenization. Now, the basic issue before the intellectuals of Ambedkarite society is to get rid of this process of lumpenization within their own society, to get rid of people and their, kind of practical solutions to gain power, which would take their very existence, which would put their very existence at stake. Now, that kind of a thing you can see day-to-day struggle by intellectuals, and there is a direct rift, direct vertical division between the Ambedkarite society or Dalits. That on one side it is intellectuals, on the other side it is only people who believe in dynasty of Dr. Ambedkar. Now Dr. Ambedkar himself was very much vehemently put forth his views against dynasty, vehemently put forth his views against worshipping the hero, because according to him, Hero worship always leads to dictatorial kind of personality. A person becomes despot, person becomes dictator. Now that kind of a person will never be able to give any kind of solution to the problems of society. That is what the society has entered into in today's scenario. Now, can we have the solution through the constitution? Yes. For the country, we can have solution through the constitution. But to the society which otherwise says Jai Bhim and says that, well, we are Ambedkarites, for them constitution is not the sole alternative, sole mean to have solution, but they will have to bring about reformation within themselves and make people realize and ripe the fruits of get the fruits of constitution by enlightening themselves, by making them free of shackles of nepotism, by making them free of shackles of the dynastic kind of a thing which we see today in the society. Now that kind of a thing, unless we get rid of, we will not be able to see a better future for Ambedkarite society tomorrow.
This is a very, very important take. I mean, let me come to the recently held elections. One of the hallmark of recently held elections, both of course, I mean, this hallmark is expressed both in Maharashtra as well as it is also been expressed elsewhere in the country, is that Ambedkarites have very proactively challenged the fascist forces. Wherever it was possible for them, at least through elections, that they have tried to defeat the RSS-BJP formation. That is what we see, therefore, that RSS-BJP formation is now been reduced to 240 or something. Okay, this is one kind of hallmark that even for the other kind of political formations, such as Congress, I mean, such as SP, and other such kind of political parties, it is the Ambedkarites, it's those who have been extremely proactive in challenging fascist forces. That's the reason you see this. I mean, you see that also happening in, for example, Maharashtra. Okay, in Maharashtra, the very fact that what is been seen as Maharashtra Vikas Aghadi, or I mean, basically a kind of a Mahavikas Aghadi, which is a kind of a combination of Shiv Sena, Congress and Sharad Pawar-led NCP. They have been able to do better also because very decisive and proactive role of Ambedkarite politics. This is one. So that I would want your comment on that. But there's also another question which I would want to raise later, or which you can also extend your views on. You have Chandrasekhar Azad Ravan getting elected independently with huge margin of more than 1.5 lakhs, and without diluting his stance on Ambedkarian or his claims, his stance on Ambedkarian vision and or his roots in Ambedkarian politics. How do you see both these things?
Now, well, this is very important issue you have raised. If we look at the politics in India today, I would say that democracy and constitution in 2024 election, although Modi has come to power third time, I do not see that power as a real power. Okay. He is reduced of what he used to be. From that, he is reduced to just running a show. And we never know when that show would collapse. Okay. Of course, that you might say that it's a wishful thinking. They will manage and run the show for 5 years. But the kind of the way they were running that show before would not be seen for them to run the show with the same force for this next 5 years. The reason being, now they have realized that the only opponent is Ambedkarite ideology, Ambedkarite philosophy. Of course, the Ambedkarite philosophy, which was practiced by the Ambedkarians in Maharashtra, it is not so. If you see the trend which is witnessed for the on the national scenario, you would realize that scene was that of protection of constitution. Scene was that of protection of democracy. It goes without saying that the constitution which was in danger of getting destroyed, the democracy which was in danger of getting destroyed by the fascist forces has been salvaged, has been saved by the Ambedkarite forces. So I see 2024 election a triumph for Ambedkarites. I see 2024 election a success story for Ambedkarian ideology. Now the only thing which needs to be carried forward by the pro-democracy forces is to make it more strong in order to get to the 2029 elections and make it 100% success of democracy, not only in letters but in spirit as well. Actually, the forces of democracy, the forces of constitution must come to power without any kind of a problem. Of course, for me, I would never ignore the problem of that of a machine. EVM machine, what is said by the researcher, that the manipulation with the EVM machine has been the reason for the BJP to gain 100 seats more than they deserve. So the seats which we see today, the seat tally which we see today, number of seats are won by 200 margin, number of seats are won by less than 100 margin, less than 200 margin. All that has been adjustment done by machine. Now I feel that this kind of a thing, if continues to exist, then we cannot see future for this country even in 2029. So we have to be vigilant. We shouldn't be complacent. We have to be absolutely vigilant, and all those democratic forces and the forces who are out to save constitution, forces who are out to save democracy, have to really work very hard and see this democracy not only in letters but in spirit also it comes into practice. I think I am hopeful for that. We have been working in that direction. I have been talking to number of political party functionaries, and I'm 100% certain by a year or two there is going to be a complete transformation in the country, and we will restore our democracy, which was the vision of Nehru, Patel, and none other but Dr. Ambedkar.
This is very important. Dr. Aparanti, thank you very much for this very engaging, some kind of a dialogue where we talked about ideological, philosophical, as well as practical aspects of democratic formation in India. I do share the kind of optimism that you have, and I mean definitely yes. I mean we therefore have played an important role in or very important active role in as watchdogs for watchdogs to retain democratic form, to retain democracy in its true meaning and ethos, not merely in terms of elections. Just last question that I have with you is, how do you look at the election success of Chandrasekhar Ravan Azad? I mean, it would be really important for me to have your views.
Sorry, you had posed this question before, but somehow in that tempo of giving my expressions, I had forgotten to mention about Chandrasekhar Ravan Azad. Chandrasekhar Ravan Azad for me is not a norm. It is an exception. because having so many impediments created by Gandhi, by Pune Pact, Chandrasekhar Ravan Azad could independently contest and could secure his position as Member of Parliament. So for me, similar kind of a situation, if happens in the country, and if we get, now we have 131 MPs, which come from all the political parties, but a person like Chandrasekhar Azad, if we get 25 of those 131 MPs as Chandrasekhar Azad, then we will be able to bring about a complete metamorphosis in the political scenario in the country. I thank you very much for giving me an opportunity, and I also wish to mention one more thing. As I see the victory of Varshadai Gaikwad in Mumbai against the enemy, the real enemy of society, that is Ujjwal Nikam, the lawyer. I consider, although Varshadai Gaikwad does not have the independence, the way we see that independence with Chandrasekhar Ravan Azad, but if she decides, and with the help of Rahul Gandhi, even she can independently exercise the authority and position which she has secured as Member of Parliament from Mumbai. And I believe such kind of the individuals, if we get more in number in the country, we will definitely be bringing about a certain amount of 100% change, not certain amount, definitely bring about change in the political and social scenario, and even we can indulge into various discourses with the help of these people and save democracy and save constitution also. Thank you very much for having me in this very important conversation. I am really thankful to you, Professor Kamble, and let us look forward to having similar kind of discourses in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Dr. Aparanti, for your time and also this detailed, in-depth articulations that you gave to your thoughts. Thank you very much. We did indeed look forward to having